I didn't cry when they cut me out of Christmas. I didn't cry when my dad forgot my promotion dinner, or when my mom posted a Facebook status calling my brother the backbone of this family after he blew through $12,000 of their money and blamed the bank. But I damn near cried when my husband picked up the package on our doorstep, turned to me and said, "Don't open this. I think it's dangerous." My name's Lila. I'm 36. I live with my husband Thomas in a small town in Idaho where the mail usually means coupons or HOA warnings about grass length. I'm not dramatic. I don't throw wine. I don't scream at mirrors. But that moment felt like the floor under me cracked just a little. See, I'm the oldest child, which in my family means the responsible one. The one who remembers everyone's birthdays, who drove 4 hours when Dad had surgery and nobody else picked up the phone. The one who didn't get into trouble because she was too busy cleaning it up. My younger brother Drew is the opposite. He's the one who just needed a little time to figure things out. The one who has a good heart, just makes bad choices. He's the reason I had to put my name on our old family car so it wouldn't get impounded. He's also the reason I stopped answering his calls 2 years ago when I realized all they led to was guilt tripping and Venmo requests. But my parents never saw that. To them, Drew was golden. Every fall he took was someone else's fault. Every mess he made was a lesson. And when I said I couldn't keep cleaning up after him, my mom actually said, "Well, you're the strong one, honey. You bounce back." I haven't spoken to them much since last spring. There wasn't a fight, just a freeze. They stopped calling. I stopped trying. It was quieter that way. Then last week, on my birthday, this box showed up. Medium-sized. No ribbon. No tag. Just my name on a printed label. It wasn't from Amazon, not from a friend. The return address was a warehouse in Arizona. Not their house. Not even their city. Thomas picked it up like it might buzz. Then he looked at me. Real quiet. "Lila," he said, "don't open this. I don't like it." I laughed. I thought he was being paranoid, but he wasn't smiling. He flipped the box and pointed at a tiny set of numbers printed near the barcode. I stared, then blinked, then looked again. "Wait," I said. "How do I know that number?" Thomas nodded. "Because you've seen it before. On Drew's boxes." He was right. That number was a vendor code. Same one I'd seen last year when we helped Drew move apartments, and he had stacks of boxes labeled with it. Cheap imported inventory he said he was reselling. Only back then, I hadn't cared. I was just trying to get out before he asked for gas money. Something in my chest got tight. "You think he sent this?" I asked. Thomas didn't answer. He just set the box down, gently like it might explode. That's when the phone rang. I looked at the screen. "Mom." I hesitated, then answered. "Sweetheart," she said, syrupy like she'd been practicing the voice. "Did you get our little gift?" My stomach twisted. "Yeah," I said slowly. "It's here." "You opened it, right?" Her tone was almost pushy. Too eager. I swallowed. "Yes," I lied. "It's lovely." "Oh, honey, we just wanted to remind you we're thinking of you. Drew said you've been hard to reach lately." My hand gripped the counter. "Well, life's been full." "I'm sure. Just don't forget, no matter what, family sticks together." Then she hung up. Thomas watched me hang up and said nothing. I could feel his eyes on me like a question he didn't want to ask. I walked over to the box, reached out, then pulled my hand back. I didn't want to touch it. Not anymore. 30 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. It wasn't a neighbor. It wasn't a delivery guy. It was a federal agent. "Ma'am, are you Lila Kent?" "Yes," I said. "We have a report about a suspicious package delivered to this address. Do you mind if we come in?" And that's when I knew. This wasn't a gift. It was evidence. The two agents walked in like they'd done it 100 times before. One of them scanned the room, calm but alert. The other went straight to the kitchen, where the box was still sitting on the counter. It hadn't moved since Thomas set it down. I hadn't even looked directly at it again. Like if I didn't acknowledge it, maybe it would stop existing. "Do you recognize this package?" the first agent asked me. I nodded. "It was on our porch this morning. Addressed to me." "Have you opened it?" "No." He glanced at his partner, who pulled gloves from his pocket and stepped closer to the box. Thomas crossed his arms but didn't say anything. He didn't need to. His silence was enough to hold me steady. I'd never been in trouble a day in my life, but I felt like I was standing in the middle of a minefield that someone else planted with my name on every square. They opened it slowly, methodically, like they were afraid something might jump out. Inside were 3 small ceramic figures wrapped in bubble wrap, a folded certificate, and a printed shipping slip. I recognized one of the figures. Not the object itself, but the shape, the style. It was the same kind Drew used to sell online. Or claimed to. The agent scanned a QR code on the bottom. His brow lifted slightly. Then he turned to me. "Do you have any reason to believe this package was sent to you by someone involved in importing illegal goods?" My mouth went dry. I don't know. I mean, it was sent from Arizona. I don't know anyone there, except... I stopped. "Except who?" "My brother, Drew." They both nodded like they already knew. I stood there, arms hanging stupidly by my sides, trying to piece together how something that looked so harmless could twist into something this heavy. Thomas moved behind me and put his hand on my back. That was all it took. I sat down at the kitchen table before my knees gave out. They asked if I'd be willing to make a statement. I said yes. I told them everything. About the call from my mother, about the label, about how none of it made sense until it did. Then I handed over my phone with the recorded voicemail, the one where my mom cooed about our little gift. When they left, the house felt hollow. I don't mean quiet, I mean emptied. Like something had been sucked out and I hadn't noticed until it was gone. I looked at Thomas. "Did you know?" I asked. My voice sounded small. Embarrassingly small. He looked at me carefully. I had a feeling. "How?" "That tracking number. That vendor ID. I've seen it before. Last year when Drew came by the house while you were out." I blinked. "What? He came here?" Thomas looked guilty. "It was just once. He said he was dropping something off for you. Left a few boxes in the garage. I didn't open them, but I remembered the numbers. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to stir anything up." The betrayal hit slow, like a wave that doesn't crash all at once but pulls you under by the ankles. "You didn't want to stir anything up?" I repeated. "Lila, I didn't think..." He didn't seem dangerous. Just desperate. That word again. Desperate. That's what people always say about Drew, as if desperation justifies everything that comes after. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just got up and walked into the garage. And there they were. 3 old cardboard boxes tucked behind the shelving unit. I never saw them. Never touched them. Never even knew they were mine. Except now I wondered if, in the eyes of the law, they were. I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about my mother's voice, the way she said, "sweetheart," like she'd earned the right. I thought about every time they told me Drew needed support, needed a fresh start, needed forgiveness. Not once did they ask what I needed. It was always assumed I'd be fine. Because I'm the strong one. Because I pay my bills and don't screw up. Because they knew I was easier to sacrifice. The next morning, I got a call from a federal investigator. He asked if I'd ever signed any business documents with Drew. I told him no. Then he asked if he could send me a copy of a digital signature they found. I agreed. When I opened the email, my stomach dropped. It was my name, my address, a business registration under Kent Global Arts, a name I'd never heard in my life. The signature looked vaguely like mine. Not exact, but close enough to fool someone who wasn't looking too hard. I felt sick. I called my mom. She answered on the second ring, chipper. "Lila, Hi. Did you know Drew used my name to register a business? She paused. Sweetheart, it's not what you think. What I think is that he forged my signature and made me legally responsible for something I didn't even know existed. It was just paperwork. He was struggling. He needed a way to get things started. You weren't really involved. I wanted to scream. You used me. You let him use me. And then you sent stolen goods to my house on my birthday and tried to pass it off as a gift. We didn't have a choice, she said. You don't have kids. You'd survive this. He wouldn't. That's when I hung up. I didn't say another word. I just sat there, staring at the wall like it might give me back the years I lost trying to be the good daughter. I thought that was the end. But it wasn't. Because 10 minutes later, Thomas came back from checking the mailbox. He looked pale. Lila, he said slowly, there's another package. I stared at him. He held it up, smaller this time. Same printed label, same Arizona return address. Except this one? This one had your name on it too, he said. When Thomas held out the second package, I didn't reach for it. I didn't even blink. I just stared, like if I kept my body still enough, the world would stop spinning. What do you mean it has your name on it? I asked. My voice didn't sound like mine. It was thinner, hollow. He turned the box so I could see the label. There it was. Printed clear as day. To Thomas Kent. Same return address in Mesa, Arizona. Same format, same courier code, same box. I didn't know what to feel first. Fear or fury. We didn't open it. We didn't even put it in the house. Thomas set it on the porch table and stood there like he was guarding a bomb. I sat on the couch and tried to breathe through the feeling that everything familiar was now something I couldn't trust. I called the agent back, told him there was a second package addressed to my husband. He paused for a beat, then asked me to send him a photo. I did. Less than 10 minutes later, he texted, "We're sending someone back tonight. Don't open it. Don't move it." And just like that, we were back on alert. Again. We didn't speak much while we waited. Thomas made tea and forgot to add the honey. I drank it anyway, because what else do you do when your entire sense of safety is unraveling in real time? The knock came around 8:30. This time it was 2 different agents. They were younger, maybe early 30s, clean cut in a way that made me feel twice my age. They took the second box with the same caution, made a few notes, and asked if either of us had ever knowingly received shipments from Mesa. Thomas shook his head. I did too. But something inside me whispered, "Are you sure?" Because I couldn't be. Not anymore. After they left, I sat on the floor of our living room and tried to put the pieces together. It wasn't just me. Now it was Thomas, too. That meant this wasn't just an accident. It wasn't even just recklessness. It was deliberate. They were using both our names. And suddenly, all the memories started clicking into place. Drew had asked me once, years ago, if Thomas had a business PayPal he could use just to verify an account. He said it wouldn't touch any real money. Just for activation. I'd said no, but I never told Thomas about it. I thought it wasn't worth bringing up. I thought I'd stopped it. The next day, I got a call from the agent again. He asked if I had a moment. I said yes, but only because I was too tired to lie. "We've reviewed both shipments," he said. "They're linked to a batch of forged cultural artifacts flagged in an international customs case last fall. There's also a secondary link to a shell company called Kent Global Designs." My throat tightened. "That's not real. That's not us." "I figured," he said. "But here's where it gets complicated. We found several documents tying that entity to your name and your husband's, both digital and physical. Business registration, international invoices, vendor contracts. I never signed anything." "That's the thing," he said. "We pulled the original registration form from state records. The signatures are off. Not enough to flag without suspicion, but enough that, side by side with verified samples, it's not you or him." I didn't speak. I couldn't. He continued. It appears someone close to you had access to old documents, enough to forge both of you, well enough to register a business and run it under your names for almost a year. And based on what we're seeing, this goes deeper than just a bad batch of imports. I asked him what that meant. He didn't give me a full answer. Just said I'd probably want to lawyer up, just in case. That night, I sat in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of how we got here. How I got here. The thing about being the reliable one is that people start assuming your silence is consent. They think your stability is permission, that you'll take the hit, clean the mess, hold the line. I thought cutting off Drew meant I was safe. But I forgot one thing. He doesn't need access to your life when he already has access to your name. And apparently neither do my parents. Because 2 days later, I got a letter. Not an email, not a text. An actual envelope, handwritten. My mother's neat cursive across the front like it was some kind of gift. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Just one sentence. We did what we had to do to protect your brother. That was it. No apology, no explanation, just a declaration like that one sentence was supposed to make me understand. Like it justified putting federal eyes on me and my husband. Like it excused dragging us into whatever pit Drew had crawled into this time. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I put the letter down and walked to the hallway closet. I pulled out the fireproof lockbox where we kept our old files. Tax returns, IDs, copies of leases and birth certificates. The kind of stuff you don't look at until something's wrong. It was all there. My signature, Thomas's, scanned, printed, stored, left over from when Drew borrowed the scanner for a school project 5 years ago. I sat on the floor with that box open in front of me, shaking, realizing the stupidest part wasn't that they'd used me. It was that I gave them the tools, because I trusted them. And then, as if the universe wasn't done with me yet, I got a call. Unknown number. I answered. Lila, a voice said. Male. Unfamiliar. This is Daniel Meyer. I represent the supplier based in Tucson whose shipment was flagged by customs. I believe you and I need to talk. I froze. How did you get my number? I asked. His tone was calm. Chillingly calm. From your company website, he said. You're listed as CEO. I couldn't breathe. What website? He sent me a link. I clicked. And there it was. A full-blown e-commerce site, branded and glossy, selling heritage-inspired artifacts with a smiling photo of me in the About section. A photo I hadn't seen in 6 years, cropped from a family vacation to Oregon. Underneath it, a quote. We believe art is memory made tangible. Except I'd never said that. I stared at my own face, plastered on a lie I didn't build but was somehow at the center of. And that's when I knew. They weren't trying to hide what they were doing. They were hiding behind me. I didn't sleep the night I saw my face on that website. I stared at the screen so long the brightness started to blur. Like the pixels couldn't believe it either. That picture. Me smiling with a coffee cup taken by my dad in Oregon, back when I still believed family vacations were supposed to mean something. And now it was stamped under a fake business, beside fake reviews, attached to fake art. And somehow, it was all real in court. The quote they used made me laugh. Not because it was clever, but because it was so completely not me. We believe art is memory made tangible. The hell I do. Thomas came in sometime after midnight and sat next to me on the floor. He didn't say anything, just put a hand on my knee and kept it there. It was the kind of silence that doesn't need filling. The next morning, I called the agent and sent him the website. He asked if I'd ever approved my likeness being used for commercial purposes. I said I didn't even approve it for family Facebook albums. I told him about the Oregon trip, about the photo, about how my parents always acted like memories belonged to them just because they had the camera. He thanked me, told me they were building a timeline and that any information could help. Then he asked something that stopped me cold. Do you still have access to your family's shared cloud account? I did. Barely remembered the password. but it was still linked to my old iCloud. Back when I thought sharing things made us closer. I logged in. It was all there. Dozens of scans. IDs, tax forms, passports, signatures. Mine. Thomas's. My dad's. Even my old W-2 from when I worked at the bookstore a decade ago. All dumped into a family folder labeled Essentials. I don't know what hit harder. The fact that they used me, or the fact that they didn't even bother hiding how. I showed it to Thomas. He didn't say a word. Just nodded once. Tight. Like something inside him had finally snapped into place. That afternoon, I sent the agent full access to the cloud folder. Every file, every backup, every piece of evidence of what they'd stolen from me. Not money, not property, but identity. They built an entire operation with my name as the foundation. And then they sent the bricks to my front door like a birthday card. I thought I'd feel better. Like doing something would make the weight lift. But it didn't. It just made the rage clearer. A few days passed. Then I got a message from my mom. Not a call. A voicemail which somehow felt worse. "Sweetheart?" she said, like we were still on good terms. "I just hope you can find it in your heart to understand. We weren't trying to hurt you. We just needed a little help. Drew's in so much trouble, and you know how fragile he is. We really didn't think you'd get dragged into it. You're strong. You always have been. I'm sorry if you're upset, but you know family comes first." I listened to it twice. Then I saved it. Then I forwarded it. 3 days later, I got a call from the federal attorney's office. They thanked me for cooperating and asked if I'd be willing to testify if needed. I didn't say yes. I said, "I want to be the reason they have to explain themselves in public. So yes, I'll show up early." That was the moment it shifted for me. Not from hurt to anger, I was already past that, but from reaction to action. Because if they were going to build their empire on me, then I was going to watch it burn, brick by brick. I didn't tell them I was coming. I didn't answer the calls that came in the days leading up to the hearing. I didn't read the texts from my dad that said things like, "Let's not blow this up more than it needs to be." I didn't reply when Drew tried to email me with a subject line that just said, "Please." The courthouse was colder than I expected. Thomas came with me, hand in mine like a lifeline. The prosecutor told me I didn't have to say much, just confirm the signature wasn't mine, that I didn't authorize the business, that I never gave consent. I did. Calm, clear, no drama, no trembling voice. And when I stepped down from the stand, I didn't look at them. Not until I heard my name. Drew was on the defense bench, thinner than I remembered. Pale. He looked at me like he still expected me to fix it. Like I was still the big sister who covered for him when he broke the neighbor's window in 6th grade. "Lila," he said, quiet, raw. But I didn't stop walking, until my mom stood up from the gallery and said, loud enough for the room to hear, "You've always been the selfish one." I turned around, and I smiled, because for once she said something true. They were charged with conspiracy, identity theft, and business fraud. Drew took a plea deal. My parents didn't. Their attorney tried to argue that they didn't understand what they were doing, that they just wanted to help their son, that they thought I'd be fine. The judge didn't buy it. The day sentencing was handed down, I didn't show up. But the twist? The one that made me stop in my tracks 3 weeks later? Was a voicemail I got from a blocked number. It wasn't my parents. It wasn't Drew. It was my aunt, my mom's sister. She said, "Lila, I just want you to know, this isn't the first time they've done something like this." And then she hung up. I didn't call her back right away. My aunt, I mean. The message sat there for hours while I wandered the house like something might finally feel normal again. But nothing did. Not the kitchen, not the porch, not the familiar sound of Thomas washing dishes like he always does after dinner. Everything had a new weight now. Like I was standing in my old life wearing someone else's name. I called her back around 10 p.m. She picked up like she'd been waiting. "I didn't want to put this in a voicemail," she said, "because it's not just messy, it's cruel." That's how I found out my parents had done this before. Not this exact thing, not with a fake website or international shipments, but something close, something worse in some ways. My mom had used her own sister's name years ago to open a store credit card after Aunt Maggie's divorce. She was trying to float the household while my dad's job was shaky. Aunt Maggie had found out when a collections agency called her apartment asking about a $9,000 balance from Sears. My mom cried, said she was desperate, said she planned to pay it off. And she did eventually. But the damage was done. She made me feel like I was heartless for being upset, my aunt said quietly. And then she just moved on like it didn't happen. I didn't know what to say, because now I knew. This wasn't a mistake. This was a pattern. They didn't pick me because they panicked. They picked me because they've always picked the one they thought wouldn't fight back. And I think that used to be true. The final sentencing hearing came a week later. I wasn't required to be there, but I went. Not for revenge, not even for closure. I went because I wanted them to see me. My parents sat 2 rows ahead of me. They didn't turn around. My mother wore the same beige sweater she used to wear to Sunday brunch, like it might soften her edges. My dad looked straight ahead the whole time, as if staring at the judge long enough might erase everything behind him. The judge was clear. This court finds that your actions were not just negligent, but exploitative. You took advantage of your daughter's trust, her identity, and her silence. She sentenced them both to probation, fines, and, most significantly, permanent restriction from holding any business licenses or financial custodianship on behalf of others. It might not sound like much, but for people like them, it cut deeper than prison. It was public, permanent, recorded in ink. Drew didn't show up. He'd already pled out, agreed to testify in exchange for a lighter sentence. I guess some patterns run deeper than others. After court, my parents waited by the exit like they thought we'd talk. I walked past them, didn't flinch, didn't slow down. But my mother called out my name anyway. "Lila." I turned. Slowly. She looked tired, smaller somehow. Her mouth opened, then closed again. Then she said, "You didn't have to make it this big." I nodded once. "You're right," I said. "I didn't. You did." That was the last time I saw her. That night, I changed every password I'd ever used, deleted every backup, requested my credit report, filed a freeze on everything. It felt like cutting the final thread on a web I didn't even know I'd been hanging from. And then I did something small, insignificant maybe. I changed my last name. Not legally, not yet. But on my email, my social profiles, my signature. Not because I was ashamed, but because I wanted to be someone they didn't get to name anymore. I know some people might think I went too far, that I could have kept it in the family, that I could have talked to them, forgiven them. And maybe years ago, I would have. But the truth is, they didn't just risk my future. They bet against it. Willingly, repeatedly. And I'm not spending one more day pretending that's okay. I didn't burn the bridge. I just stopped holding it up by myself. If there's one thing I've learned from all this, it's that silence isn't strength. It's survival. And eventually, if you keep surviving long enough, you realize you deserve more than that. You deserve peace, even if you have to build it alone. If you've been through something like this, even just a fraction of it, I'm here. Tell me your story in the comments if you want. And if you're still listening, still watching, still holding your own silence, maybe stick around. Sometimes just knowing someone else walked away is enough to take the first step. Thanks for sitting with me through this. You're not alone.